So good morning everybody and welcome to Module 4 of the Takeoff and Estimate Software Skills course. In Module 4 we're going to look at many of the different tools available in EstimatorXpress to make use of the data that we have produced. So during Module 4 we're going to look at how to use the build program. We're going to look at how to use the data reports and also how to set up the customer quote. So to do this, we're going to need to open up the training estimate, which we have previously created. So from the EstimatorXpress dashboard, underneath recent work, we're going to click on our training estimate. So you can see a little thumbnail of the job there just to check you're opening the correct one. So click on the estimate to open it. So your estimate will open up in the main estimate screen on the job overview. And first of all, we're going to have a look at the build program. So if you scroll up on the Navigator, you can minimize the list of estimating calculators by clicking on the arrow next to main estimate. And then underneath there, you'll see the build program has its own section on the Navigator. So click where it says build program. This will open up the build program for this estimate. The first time you enter the screen, you're given this option here of removing any build phases which haven't been used within the estimate. So the build program is a template with all of the phases that you may be using within a job. But of course, we might not have estimated for all of those different build phases. So what it's saying is, do you want to remove any build phases which aren't actually included in your estimate at the moment? So for now, I'm going to click no. Sometimes it may be that you want to click yes and you want to clean up your build program from the outset, but I'll just show you how it all works from the beginning. So what we're looking at is the entire build program, which has been selected for our Lean-to single story extension. You'll see it's quite a substantial chart. It's quite long, and as I said, there may be build phases in there that you're not actually going to need. So just to give you a quick introduction to the build program, on the left-hand side, of course, we've got the build phases, and then across the bottom we have got dates, and these are in weekly increments, so every 7 days. At the top, hopefully you'll see your company name, and as I said, you'll see a description of the build program template that you're looking at. So this is a standard chart template for a single story extension, and it will need some customizing from you for your particular job. So just having a look at the tab at the top of the screen. So we've got the build program tab, and there's a number of different functions on there. We have the opportunity to add a build phase to the chart. We can remove unused build phases, so that's exactly the same option as we got from that dialog box that popped up. That allows us to remove any build phases we don't need to use. We can change the label size if need be. Then we've got the reset refresh button. That's a really handy one for helping you tidy up your build program, and we'll be using that in a few moments. We've got the import library build program button. So if you decide you want to use a different build program template, you can select a different one from the library to bring into this estimate. Also, if you have edited and saved a build program in the library, so maybe you've been into the library, you've tweaked it and set it up a bit differently, then you can import it from the library into your estimate. And then of course we have print and export buttons, so you can print your build program, or you can export it to a variety of different file formats. If I just click on the button, you'll see the list of all the different files you can export it to. Okay, so those are the buttons at the top. So of course, there are many build phases within this build program that we haven't done any estimating for. So to clean up the chart so that it only shows estimated build phases, we're going to click that Remove Unused Build Phases button. That will bring up a list of all of the build phases which haven't been used within the estimate. So basically here you're ticking the boxes of the build phases that you want to remove. So if there's any that you want to leave in there, say for example you might want to leave erect scaffolding in there, you can untick it. Maybe you want to leave, I don't know, your plumbing second fix in there as well. So you can mix and match. So the boxes that you tick are going to be removed. If they're unticked, they'll stay in. So I'm going to leave the scaffolding and plumbing second fix unticked, and then I'm going to click select. And you'll see those phases have been removed that we don't need, and the chart has been updated. So each of the bars on the chart has got a bit bigger, so it's making the most of the space available on screen. So to make any changes to the chart, we need to use the editing tools on the right-hand side. So this pane lives on the right-hand side. You can minimize it or hide it using that arrow there. So it might be hidden on the right-hand side. If you want to use the editing tools, just click where it's pinned to the side of your screen to expand the editing tools. Okay, so the first thing you might want to do within your build program is change the job start date. So of course, when you begin estimating, you're not necessarily going to know your job start date, and it may be that you need to come back in to your build program at a later point to tweak this. So this is where you set the job start date, and that will impact on the reports in your estimate as well, of course. So to change the job start date, if you just click on the drop-down box, you'll see this calendar appears. You can click through the months using the arrows at the top. So let's say this job's going to start in August, and then you just click on the date. So let's go with Monday the 3rd is the anticipated start date. You'll see the template, the bar chart template has gone a little bit strange because of the change in job start date. We've now got this big empty phase at the beginning. So what we can do is press that reset refresh button on the ribbon at the top of the screen, and that will just refresh the build program and get everything displaying nicely again. So the build program now starts on the 3rd of August rather than the 1st of June or whatever it was before. Okay, so that's how you change the overall job start date. So I just want to talk through all of the different editing tools, and then we'll have a go at playing around with some of them. So at the top of the editing tools, underneath job start date, we've got the ability to edit our build phases. So firstly, we can select the build phase we want to edit in that top drop-down box. And then we have options to either change the start date of that build phase, or we can change it in terms of weeks and days. So we can use these up and down arrows to change the start week and the start day of a particular phase. And then the next set of controls allow us to change the duration in weeks and days of a particular build phase. So we'll come back and do that in a moment. The next option we have is a really important one. It's Cascade changes to subsequent build phases. Now this tick box here allows us to move phases following the one we're editing, so that if we lengthen a phase, all of the subsequent phases will be shunted along appropriately. So that's something you may need to turn off and on while you're editing your build program, as in some cases you may not want to change in a build phase to have a knock-on effect to the subsequent build phases, but sometimes, and quite often, you will. So you might need to think about when you switch that on or off. And then we've got a couple of display settings here. The first one allows you to display a selected time frame. So you can say, I want to see all build phases between the 1st of September and 31st of December, for example. And the last option allows us to filter the build phases on screen, so we can select a specific group of build phases that we might want to focus in on. So those are all of the different editing tools. So we'll have a go at using some of them now. So of course, one thing you might want to do is change the start date of a build phase. So at the moment, I've got the design phase selected. The other way you can select a build phase is to click on it on the build program. So I can click on planning application here. I'll go back to design phase and you'll see it's automatically selected. So that's the other way to select a build phase. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the start date of design phase set to 0. I'm actually subsequently going to hide these phases because perhaps you don't want to show design phase, planning application, building regulations on your build program. If you're using it with you guys on site, then it's possibly not relevant. So I'm going to show you how you can hide them shortly. So what I'm going to do is set the start date for the design phase, planning application and building regs to 0 to start on week 0. So design phase already has a start week of 0, start date of 0, so that's fine. Click on planning application or select it from the drop down box and then set the start week of that to 0. So click the down arrow. As you do that, you see the planning application build phase moves to the left. And I'm going to do the same for building regs. So select building regs either from the drop down box or by clicking on it on the build program. And I'm going to set the start week to 0 again. And then finally, I'm going to select commencement, which is the 4th bar down. Again, you can also select it from the drop-down box. And I'm going to set the start week of commencement to 0. And that's because I want commencement to be the first build phase that actually shows on the build program. And I'm going to get rid of those top 3 build phases in a moment. So you'll notice that because this cascade changes to subsequent build phases option is ticked, as I've moved commencement, all of the following build phases have also been pulled forward in time, as you'd expect. If at any point you want to move a build phase so that it's in a different place in the sequence, then you can do that. So I'm going to stick with commencement, and I'm going to do something which is really obviously not correct, but it just shows you how to do it. So say I wanted commencement to come after the foundations build phase. To do that, I could change the start week. Oh, I've got to do something before I do that. So if I want to move a build phase out of its sequence within the chart, I need to untick cascade changes because I'm overriding the natural order of things. So if I then change the start week of commencement, you'll see it's not impacting on any of the other build phases because the changes I'm making aren't cascading through. So I've moved my commencement now, so it's starting the week after foundations, which is obviously ridiculous. But of course, it's not in the right position in the chart. So if commencement was coming out of foundations, it should be further down the chart. So to get it to move, once you've changed the date, the start date, you can click the reset refresh button. And there we can see commencement has been moved into the right place chronologically. If 2 phases start at the same time and finish at the same time, they'll be listed alphabetically. So here you'll see we've got electrical first fix, joinery first fix, plumbing first fix. They all have the same start date and duration, and they're ordered alphabetically, so there's no other significance to the order. The same for the second fix, same for roof structure and structural openings here. Okay, so that's just to show you how you can move a phase into a different position within the chart. I'm now going to put the commencement back because, of course, we don't want it coming after those other phases. So I'm clicking on commencement, and I'm going to change the start week to 0, and then click the reset refresh button. The other way you can change the start date of a phase is just using that start date drop down there. So you can use the calendar to select a specific date that a phase is going to start, if that is easier. Either way, it's doing exactly the same thing. Okay, so of course, as well as changing the start date of a phase, you can change its duration. So you can make a build phase last longer, or you can make it shorter. Unless you want your build phases to overlap, tick the Cascade changes button, tick box I should say. So for practice, we will alter the length of the masonry shell phase. So you'll see it's here highlighted in purple, masonry shell. You can click it on the build program or select it from the drop down box. So now we can use the duration tools to alter the duration. So at the moment it's lasting 2 weeks, but let's say your team's not going to be available for a week of that and you decide you need to increase the duration to 3 weeks. We'll add 3 days on as well, some unforeseen circumstances perhaps. As you click to change the duration using those up and down arrows, the length of the bar obviously also changes. So once you've done that, click the reset refresh button, and again the chart will be tidied. And because a masonry shell starts at the same time as the erection of the scaffolding, it's put it underneath it because it's comes after it in the alphabet basically. I'm just looking to see. We've got Cascade changes ticked, but it's not. Oh no, it's doing it now. Oh, very strange. Okay, so that's what it should be doing. Because Cascade changes is ticked, as I change the duration of my masonry shell, it should be shunting all of the subsequent phases along. It seems to have sorted itself out, whatever funny business it was doing. So I'm going to leave masonry shell set to 3 weeks and 3 days. Now, Paul's asked a really good question. Does this impact on our cost at all? And the answer to that is no, it doesn't. The template works as a separate standalone thing. It doesn't read the estimate data, and it doesn't impact on the estimate either. So you're right, Paul. If you realise that a particular phase is going to take longer, that the work is trickier, you will need to go and review that within the estimating calculator, or it might be a specification, job specification level change that you need to make. So yeah, you need to apply your human judgment when you're setting up your build program, but also, yeah, it will not impact on the estimate itself. So I said at the outset that I wanted to hide the design phase, building regs, planning application to use this build program on site. I don't want to show those. So we can use the view settings here and the option to display only specific build phases. So if you tick that box, and then you can click select build phases, you'll see a list of all of the build phases on your build program, and you can untick any that you don't want to show. So you may have other reasons for not showing a particular build phase. Untick those boxes, click select, and they're basically just hidden from screen. So of course they haven't gone altogether. You can bring them back by clicking select build phases again. You can show them again. But if for presentation purposes you want to hide a particular build phase, that's fine. Then you can print it, change it back. Just thinking probably shouldn't have this gap, should we, between commencement and foundations. So I've got Cascade changes ticked. And then if I change the start date of the foundations phase to the 10th of August, I'm going to use the calendar this time to show you how to do that. Then it's pulled all of the subsequent phases back, which is what Cascade changes should be doing. So just looking at some questions here. Is there a way to scale to a one page only when exporting to PDF, A4 or A3? Well, this is a good question. Let's have a look. So I'm going to use the export PDF. There's two ways of exporting to PDF, which you may be aware of already. You can export to a PDF, or you can print to PDF. So if you've got a PDF printer set up on your computer, then you can print to PDF as well. Although my computer seems to be doing something strange. Stopped responding. Bear with me a second, guys. Here we go. It was just taking its time. So what's it doing here? It is actually over one page. So what I've done there is I've gone to the print option. It's showing me a print preview, and then I can go print, and I've got a PDF printer set up on my computer. I'm sure you may well have one. Mine's Foxit. You might have Adobe or something else. So you can select your PDF printer, and then I can just select page 1 and print it to PDF that way. Okay, so I'm going to close my print preview. Get back to EstimatorXpress. So the other way of exporting a PDF is to use the export button. So it looks like when you do it using the export, you don't have as much control over the layout of your PDF. So if you can, use the print to PDF option, and then I think you can modify it in the print preview, and you can save it how you want it. So I think it gives you a bit more control to do it that way. Okay, so we've had sorry, I've had a few questions. I'm just having a quick read to catch up. So Steve's asked, if we haven't priced a job on the software, can we use the build program on a small specific job we need to give the client a build program for? Yeah, absolutely. You could just create a dummy job. So I guess the easiest way to do it would be to create a job using a standard job template, choose the most appropriate job template type. Hopefully the build program template would be appropriate. If it's not, you can go to import library, select a different template. So say it was a renovation job even. You could select that template and then tweak the build program as you need it, print it as it is. It doesn't matter that there's not an estimate there. So if that's helpful to you, there's absolutely no problem in doing that. You just need to create a dummy estimate. Make sure you got the right build program, the best one to start with, and then you can alter it for your particular job. So just reading Jack, you're saying you're still having a bit of problem with the cascading not having an impact when you're altering masonry shell. Right, I'm going to report that, and I will let you know if I get any feedback on that. That's really weird. I haven't actually had that particular problem before, so I don't know if it might be to do with the recent update we've had. Okay, so I think that was everything I wanted to cover for build program. So we've been through printing, exporting. Of course, you might want to use your build program as part of your presentation to the client, because I think it's reassuring for the client, isn't it, to know some approximate timescales, and I'm sure they'll understand that you won't necessarily be, you can't be pinned to it, but it's helpful for people to know. I think the more information they have at their hands, the more confident they feel. So I think it makes your business seem even more professional to supply it. And of course, you can use your build program to help with the management of your project. Just a couple of things I want to emphasize before we move away from the build program. The first is that the build program is really important in that it controls all of the reports that make use of dates. So reports like your cash flow report, your profit forecast, any order schedules, they all make use of dates, and those dates come from the build program for each build phase. So the reports need your build program to be pretty accurate for the reports to be meaningful. And just to recap what I've touched on, the build program templates do not read the estimate data. they're templates, so they always start out the same. So every time you create an estimate for a lean-to extension and it picks this single story extension template, it will start the same. It requires you to do some editing, and there's a few reasons for that. It basically it comes down to it needs some human judgment. The software's not going to be aware of any holidays, any planned breaks in construction, any changes you might have in available workforce. So whilst it starts as a sensible starting point, it needs you to do some fine tuning. And as I said earlier, if you make any changes to the build phase length within the build program, the estimate won't know that. So you need to look at the estimate and check that your labour rates are looking correct, and you might need to do a bit of tweaking if one particular build phase is going to take a lot longer than the software would estimate by default. There is a report within the software that can help you to set up your build program. It's called the labour time schedule. So that will tell you the length that the software has estimated for your different build phases. So you can look at that labour time schedule report and combine it with your knowledge of the job, any complexities or challenges with it, and it will help you come up with your realistic build schedule. Okay, apologies for the pauses every now and again. It's usually while I'm just reading comments and questions. Okay, so Lucian's just said he just wants to double check that he understands correctly. The build program does not take into account the dimensions or the length of times from the estimate. That's correct. So this is just a template build program for a single story extension. It doesn't know if your single story extension is 10 meters long or if it's 5 meters long. It's just a template starting point for a single story extension. So you need to do that bit of tweaking there. Paul's asking, where do you find the labour time schedule report? We're going to move on to reports now. So when we get to it, I will I'll show you where it is and talk you through it. That's no problem at all. Okay, I'm just going to take a quick sip of water so my voice holds out, and then we'll move on to data reports. In fact, we can click onto it first. So we've got another section on the Navigator called Outputs. If you click on the drop-down arrow, you'll see within Outputs we have some various written documents, including your quote. We've also got a building regs notes function, stage payments and invoicing functions within there. And then a little bit further down, we've got data reports. So if you can click data reports. Okay, so the data reports contain absolutely vast amounts of data about your estimate, and being able to use these reports effectively will help you manage your business even more effectively than you are already, I believe. So what we're going to do is look at several of the different reports and talk about how they might be used. It would be really great if you have a bit of time on your own to go through all of the reports and get an understanding of the data that's available, and to see which reports would be useful to you and your business. But I'm going to point out several of them today anyway. So the first report we're going to look at is the second one in the list. That's the sales price including overhead and profit report. So next to each report, there's an open button. Click the relevant open button. So before we actually go through the report, I'll just talk you through the different options that we have available when we're looking at any of the reports. So we have a copy button. So you can copy the current report, give it a new name, and then you can edit it if you want to. So you can create your own reports that way. You can delete the current report. So whichever report's open, you can delete it from your current job. It doesn't delete it from the system altogether, so you don't need to worry about that, but it will delete it from the job. We've got the auto fit button. That basically just expands the columns to fit the data that's available. So if I show you, if if you can't quite read the complete label or bit of data within a box, if you click the autofit button, the column will automatically be extended to show all the data. We've got this field list button. This shows and hides the field list on the right hand side. I'm going to come back to the field list in a bit because the field list allows you to customize the report, to add data fields to your report. So after I've shown you a few reports, I'm going to talk about how you can use it to edit them. So you can show or hide the field list using that button there. You're basically just clicking it on or off. We've got some options for whether we want to show column and row totals. Those options might be useful for particular reports that you're looking at. We won't worry too much about it now. We've got these filters here. So top one allows you to hide any items with a 0 quantity. So sometimes you might find you've got a 0 field in there. So you can, sorry, the top one's for quantities and the bottom one is for costs. So if you've got any 0 quantities or 0 costs, you can hide them from your report if it's not useful to have them in there. Then we have print and export buttons. They work in exactly the same way as they did in the build program. Got a variety of different file types that you can export to. Obviously, Excel might be helpful to you. Also, CSV is a very simple plain report, so CSV file might be helpful as well. So you can save the current report. So that button's handy if you copy a report and then want to save it with a new name. And then there is a final button which is really, really useful, the restore report button. So that will reset the report to its original format and contents. So if you do some tinkering with a report, you're getting a bit of a pickle with it, you're not happy with how it looks, you want to go back to the original, just click the restore report button. So all is not lost. So hopefully that will help give you the confidence to have a bit of a play around with the reports. Okay, so this particular report is sales price including overhead and profit. So it gives you a really simple breakdown of costs, wastage, overhead, profit, total sales price, and they're all arranged by build phase. So just have a quick look. Make sure it makes sense to you. So if I just pick out one example, so for our plumbing first fix, that was our subcontract quotation. Cost excluding wastage is £600. There's no wastage on a subcontract quotation. The profit has been added on there at 20%. Overheads were 15%, weren't they? Just doing my math quickly, so you can see the total price there, including overhead and profit, and wastage is factored in where appropriate. Okay, so once you've had a look at that, you're happy with what it's doing there, we can move on to another report. We can do that using the Navigator. So you'll see on the Navigator on the left, you can see the complete list of data reports. So we can navigate between them without going back to the main data report screen if we wish, just by clicking on a different report. So let's have a look at the report that's 2 rows down, plastering costs. So you'll see we've got several trade specific cost reports. So you can use whichever ones are relevant. They're all laid out exactly the same, they just focus on different trades. So we've got one for bricklayers, roof tilers, ground workers, joiners, and so on. So if you open up plastering costs, you'll see that it shows us the plastering build phase. You might need to scroll down to see all of the data. And it shows us the tasks that the plasterers are doing and the cost for each of those tasks. So again, you've got the breakdown of costs excluding wastage, wastage total if appropriate, and then total costs including wastage. So that's the plastering report. Next one we'll look at is costs by resource. So it's about 12 lines down. Just looking at, got a quick question here. It doesn't have a grand total at the bottom. It's a good point. It doesn't, does it? That's because it was switched off for some reason. So make sure show row totals is ticked, and then you should see the totals for each of those columns there. So total cost of resources excluding wastage, total cost plus total wastage cost, and then the total cost including wastage. So yeah, I would leave all of those boxes ticked by default. So where it says show column grand totals, show row grand totals, and so on, tick all of those. In certain reports, it can make it look a little bit messy because you end up with loads of extra rows, but in this one, obviously, it's quite handy to have. Okie dokes. So I was moving on to costs by resource. So it's about 12 lines down or so, costs by resource. This shows a really simple breakdown of costs by the different resource types. So you can see how much you're spending on your labour, how much you're spending on materials, and so on. This is also shown on that job overview screen. So in a pie chart format, it shows you these same figures. But sometimes it's helpful to look at things in more of a spreadsheet format. Okay, so those are some really very simple reports that we've looked at so far. We'll look at the next one down in the list, which is cash flow. There's a cash flow and an inflated cash flow report, but we'll look at cash flow for now. And of course, the cash flow report shows your outgoings for the job. So this is one of the reports which is based on dates. So the payment due dates are based on the bill phase dates, and then any payment lead times which are set against all of the different resources. So when we created our own resources, I'm sure you'll remember that we set up the payment lead time. So that's how the software comes up with these payment due dates. They're approximate, of course, but hopefully it gives you an idea of when you need cash in from your client to cover your outgoings, basically. So it can help you with scheduling payments and so on. So the main thing you need to remember is that your bill program is set up pretty accurately to start with to make this report meaningful. Okay, so have a quick look at that for a moment. Okay, another important date-based report is the profit forecast, which is 2 rows down on the Navigator. Profit forecast, as you'd expect, shows you the profit that you'll be earning at various dates throughout the job. And then it gives you the cumulative profit in the right-hand column there. This report uses the profit figures set within the job settings. So when you create your estimate, EstimatorXpress copies your profit markup from your default settings within the library. But if you want to tweak the profit for this particular estimate, if you scroll down into your job settings, there's a section called Overhead Profit and Inflation. You can click on there and you can tweak your profit margins for this particular job. So it may be that you want to increase them slightly, or it may be that you've offered a slight discount and you want to reduce your profit slightly. Of course, you can do that as dictated by the needs of your company at any particular time. So the profit margins can be specific to every single job. So if you make changes to the profit and then come back into this profit forecast report, it will be updated accordingly. Okay, so yeah, before you use your profit forecast report, make sure your profit margins are set accurately. For those of you who are considering the Enterprise edition of EstimatorXpress, there's a really, really useful function of Enterprise edition, which is called grouped jobs. So you can group together multiple estimates and look at the data for that group of estimates. So that can be applied to many different applications, really. So you can group your jobs together. So if you were doing a small development and you had 3 houses and 3 garages that you wanted to group together, so you could look at the overall project costs and do a project level build program. You can do that with the grouped jobs. Another application of it is that you could group together all of your jobs that you have coming up over the next 6 months or 12 months, and you can then look at the data reports for that group of jobs. You can create a combined profit forecast for all of your jobs and use that to create a 6-month profit forecast for your company or a 12-month profit forecast for your company. So if you're considering or if you have already signed up to Enterprise Edition, then that's one of the really, really useful features of it, I think, is that you can use it for management of your business and projecting profits over the next year or whatever's useful to you. Okay, so that's profit forecast. We also have the labour time schedule report. Now, this is the one which we can use to help set up the build programme. So 3 rows down, we've got labour time schedule. So labour time schedule shows you the times we have calculated for the various build phases. So use this information to help set up your build programme if you think it's useful. All of the times here are listed in hours, so you would need to divide by 8 to get these figures into days. So for example, we've got 15 hours for your brickie and his mate to form the structural opening. So we could say that's about 2 days for that particular job, and so on. So hopefully that can help inform your build programme. Remember, the data we're looking at here is for a slightly incomplete estimate, so there may be things that look slightly not figures that aren't quite big enough, and that's probably why. Okay, so a couple of other reports to use. We've got the plant used report. So a couple of rows down again. Plant used simply lists your plant, tool, equipment requirements by build phase. So that can help you with making sure you got the right plant on site at the right time. Okay, and there's a couple of reports I would like to finish off looking at. The next one is Quotation Inquiry, so it's right near the bottom of the list of data reports. Quotation Inquiry. This can be really useful for exporting and sending to your merchant. So if you want to get some prices from your merchant. So I'm going to show you how you can filter a report to display slightly different data. So let's say we want to create a quotation inquiry for our heavy side aggregate merchant. So you'll see each of the columns of data has a heading at the top, or a field heading. If we click, if you remember when we were filtering the price book, this works in exactly the same way. When you hover your cursor over a column heading, that filter icon appears. If you click on the filter icon, you'll see a list of all the different resource types which are within the report at the moment. So if we want to put together an inquiry for heavy side materials, then we could tick aggregates, blocks, let's say concrete products, just as an example. There may be more. click elsewhere on screen to get rid of that filter tool there. And then you'll see a shorter list of aggregate stroke heavy side materials. It also has the quantities. It may be that you're happy to export it and send it as it is. It may be that you want to tweak the report a little bit. So you could export it as an Excel file. So click export, then select Excel workbook, export it into Excel. You can delete any columns you don't want to show. You could add another column in if needed, and then you could then email it to your merchant requesting them to put together a quote for those particular resources for you. So that's how you can use the quotation inquiry report, and as I've shown you there, you can filter it. You could do the same thing to filter timber products and send off an inquiry to your timber merchant. So the last report then I want to show you is the materials used report. So it's actually above the one we've just looked at. Materials used. Okay, so this report lists your required materials organised by build phase. So we're going to use this report to look at some of the ways you can change a report to suit your needs. So any of the reports that we've looked at can be edited. We can remove fields, we can insert different fields into the report to present the information the way we want it to be shown. So before I show you how you can edit the report, just a few words about how you might use a report like this. So in our experience, the typical builder might be visiting their merchant a few times a week. Each time they do that, they might be spending a couple of hours going there, picking resources, coming back. So each week you might be spending up to a day's worth of time possibly dealing with your merchant. And of course, there are circumstances where you're going to have to go to the merchant and do things on an ad hoc basis. It's inevitable. But if you plan your material orders really effectively, then of course you can reduce the amount of time you're spending at the merchant. And then that will hopefully open up more time for you to be doing tasks like finding new clients, doing your estimating, selling, and so on. Project management, and hopefully just creating more time for you to be with your families and friends and have a bit of free time back as well. So you can use this materials use schedule basically to create a delivery schedule for your merchant. And then space allowing, that means you can have all of your materials delivered to site as per your schedule so that they're available when you need them. You don't have to chase your merchant. You don't have to be driving to the merchant yourself. I'm of course talking about when things are back to normal and open as we hope they will be soon. But yeah, the idea of this report is that yeah, hopefully you can be a bit more organised in your material ordering. I'm sure lots of you are absolutely brilliant at it anyway, but just to show you how it might help you on that front. So let's have a look at how we can change the contents of the report a little bit. As I said, the changes we're going to make can be applied to any report, and as I said at the beginning of looking at the reports, you can even make your own reports by copying the existing ones and saving them with a new name. Okay, so as with all of the reports, they have got column headings along the left-hand side here. These can be dragged in or out of any of the reports. Then on the right-hand side, we've got our field list, as I pointed out at the start. The field list contains all sorts of headings. So some of them are contained within folders. So with resource, got all sorts of different resource fields, for example. And there's a long list at the bottom. All of these fields can be dragged into the report to give additional data. So let's start by dragging a new field into the report. So this date required field here, I'm going to add that to the report. So underneath the folders, about 6 lines down, we've got date required. So to bring that into the report, all we need to do is click and hold down our left mouse button on that field and drag it onto the report. You'll see it's attached to your cursor. So you can basically drag it onto the report into the position where you want to place it. So I'm going to hover it to the left of where it says build phase. So I want to put this field on the very left-hand side of the report. I'll do that again just to show you again. So click and hold down date required, drag it onto your report, position it at the top of the column where you want it to go. So I'm putting it to the left of the build phase column, and those blue arrows appear telling you where that category is going to go. Then you just need to release the left mouse button, and that new column of data will be added to the report. So we've got date required, so that's going to tell us when we need those materials on site. Let's say I don't want to organise the report by build phase. I'm happy for it to just be a long list of resources. So I can remove the build phase column heading from the report altogether. So I can drag that off in exactly the same way. So just place your cursor over where it says build phase, hold down your left mouse button, drag the field up to the top of your screen. Once that X appears, that red X, you can release the left mouse button, and that field has now been removed from our report. It's not gone for good though, because if you look at the field list, build phase has now appeared in there. So if you wanted to put it back in the report, you could drag it back onto the report. Okay, so you've seen we can add a new field to the report. We can drag a field off. And you'll see that now all of the resources, all of the materials are listed simply by the date they're required. Of course, you can drag other headings from the field list. So let's say we wanted to add the resource type field. I think it's probably within the resource folder. Let's have a look. Yes. So if you click on the arrow next to the resource folder, scroll down, they're obviously ordered alphabetically. You'll find resource type. So I'm going to replace resource type to the left of description. So I'm dragging it onto my report to the left of resource description. Release the left mouse button when you're happy with it. So now the resources are ordered firstly by date required, but then they're separated into resource type. It might be that you decide you want to put it in a slightly different place. You can just click and drag it into a different position. Probably not so useful in that position. So I'm going to drag it back. Okay, so hopefully you're seeing how you can manipulate the reports to show firstly the information that you want to show, and secondly in the way that you want to show it, so organising it as you want. Okie dokes. So just looking at a couple of questions we've got here. On the resource type, cannot see labour. So this at the moment is a materials used report. So we were talking about how we could use it to order from our merchant. It might be that you want to see your labour resources in there, and this actually really helpfully brings us on to another thing you can do within your reports. You'll see at the very top of the screen we have got a data field here called type of resource, and within that there's a filter icon. So click on the type of resource filter, and you'll see that at the moment only material resources are being displayed. But if you wanted to show labour as well, of course the name of the report is slightly wrong then, so you might want to copy it and rename it, but in theory there's no limit to how you can edit these reports really. So we're showing labour and material, and And now we can see within each of the different resource types, it's showing us the labourers as well as the materials. So you could, if you wanted a report showing that, that would be absolutely fine. If you want to go back to just showing materials, click on that type of resource, filter, untick labour, and click elsewhere. So we're just showing materials again. So you can, using the type of resource, you can filter the data set that you're looking at within the report. Lucian's also said profit markup shows percentage. Can we have a pound value too? Good question. Just wondering, was that in this report, Lucian, that you were talking about profit? Oh, are you just talking about the field? Oh, okay, so you've dragged it on. A good question. There's a total profit field. I'm just going to pop it on the report for a moment. Just wondering what that is showing. There are so many different fields within the reports. Sometimes it's just a case of having a play around. So yeah, profit markup is showing that I've got a 20% profit markup, or it might be 0.15 on yours if you've got the defaults in there. So I think perhaps that total profit field must be showing the amount in pounds. So yeah, for your facing bricks, it's £247, which sounds about right, doesn't it? If your total cost about 1,200 quid. So yeah, I think if you want to show profit amount, select that total profit field. And profit markup, yeah, shows the percentage. So hopefully that makes sense of that. Okay, just looking at another question. Guys, I'm conscious that we've only got 20 minutes or so left, so I'm going to move on to the quote side of things in a minute, because I obviously don't want you to miss out on that. So Scott's saying, seems to show a bag of sand at £41, but then says we only need 0.27, but you can only order bulk bags by the bag, so we'd be out of pocket. Am I reading this correctly? For some products, of course, you're going to want to total up what's needed across the duration of a job rather than what's required on any particular date. So you might want to do a bit of rounding. So it may be that you want to export your reports to Excel and make sense of those figures a little bit. It may be that you want to do a little bit of tweaking of, obviously you don't want to order a 41 quid bag of sand if you're only using a quarter of it, but if you're using it elsewhere during the job, it may be that you can round up and it does make sense. So you may need to apply a little bit of human judgment there. But if that's something you want to explore a little bit more, perhaps I can get Tom to chat with you about that. Let me know, Scott, if you'd like to go into that a bit more. So many brilliant questions today. It's really good. It shows that you're really understanding how the software's working, so that's brilliant. Okay, so as I said, let's move on to the customer quote. That's the last section of today's training, but we do want to make sure we get through it. So, okay, so if you scroll back up on the Navigator, within the output section, under written documents, we've got what we call the quote for the main estimate. So if you click on there, I've actually just realised there's something we should do before we do that. Your customer address details will appear on your customer quote. So of course you want to make sure that you've got your customer address details filled out correctly. So to do that, you'll see why. If you have a look here, look, my address details are not provided, so the cover page is showing that. Just going to make a quick change to my quote. So what we need to do is go into the job settings. So scroll to the bottom of the Navigator. So I'll just show you overhead, profit and inflation actually as well. So if you click overhead, profit and inflation, before you create your customer quote, of course, you want to make sure you're happy with the overhead and profit markup that you've got set here. You also, if you're going to apply inflation, you also need to have a think about if you're happy with your inflation rates. It may be at the moment that you want to be a little bit cautious. We were talking yesterday at a team meeting about, you know, what we anticipate inflation rates being going forward. Are there going to be supply issues? It seems likely that materials may be a little bit more expensive in coming months. So maybe you want to set your inflation rate slightly higher. So make sure you're happy with those rates in there. And then just above overhead, profit and inflation, we've got the client contact details. So here you can type in your client's name, so put some example data in there. Just type something in, it doesn't matter what it is. Phone numbers don't appear on the quote as standard, but you might want to have them in there as a record for yourself anyway. Now, if you're doing an extension or renovation work where the client's address details are the same as the site address details, then tick this box under site details, and that will copy your address details across, so you don't have to duplicate that. Builder's details. This has appeared actually in the latest version of the software. This didn't used to be here. I'm going to leave it blank for now, because it always used to be that the quote would take your details from your registered user details, but maybe the developers have changed it slightly so you can type your details in as you want them to appear. So I'm going to leave it blank for now and see how it appears in the quote, because that's new to me. Okay, so we're going to go back to outputs. So we're going to expand outputs, expand written documents, and then click quote for main estimate. So make sure your customer address details are in there. Make sure your profit and inflation rates and so on are set as you want them. Okay, so once you've navigated to your quote, you'll see a preview of the quote in the middle of the screen. I'm just using the scroll wheel and the control wheel, the control key on my keyboard to scroll out so I can see a whole page at a time. So when you've clicked onto quote for main estimate, it shows you a preview of the entire document. So you've got your cover page, your letter, your summary of costs, and then it goes into the breakdown of the quote. Across the top, when you're in the quote, you've got a tab with loads of different buttons that you may need. I'll just point out a few of them which are particularly important. You can obviously zoom in and out using the buttons there. You can click and navigate through the pages using the arrows. There are various printing and exporting options. There's an option to save your quote to the library. So once you've got your quote settings set as you want them, you can click that button, save it to the library, and then any estimates that you create in the future will use the quote settings that you've saved. So that's really good. Once you've set up your first quote exactly as you want it, make sure you click save to the library, and it will do things like saving your company logo if you've added it in, saving any changes to the wording in the quote letter that you've made, and so on. So come back and press that save button once you're happy with the presentation of the quote. You can import a quote from the library. So if you have saved a set of quote settings to the library, you can import them into a particular estimate. So if you've already done an estimate and you make the changes you want within this estimate today, you can save them to the library, go into your other estimate, and then apply those quote settings to an older estimate if you want to. Okay, so what we want to do is set up this quote so it's presented the way you're happy, because obviously everybody likes to show different levels of detail within their quotes. So on the right hand side, when you're in the quote, we have the settings pane, and this tab here deals with the main settings for the quote. So this impacts on the overall structure of the quote and the format of it and so on. So the first setting we've got within the main settings is the quote type. So we've got three types of quote you can create. Build phase is a traditional quote which is broken down into build phases. That's the quote you would use for the vast majority of your work, but we do have a couple of other options. You can break your quote down by estimating calculator. That can be useful if you're doing some very specific work. So if you were doing, say, just some renovation tasks, you might want to organize your quote by estimating calculator. The third option is to organize it by location. So if you were doing some renovation work within a house, you were doing some landscaping outside, and you were building a garage extension, for example, you could organize the quote by the location of those items. So you could have house, garden, garage as 3 different locations, and what you would need to do is select those relevant locations from within the quote template. So if you go into the dimensions wizard within the quote template, say for your you were doing, I don't know, plastering, if you go into the plastering and then click dimensions wizard, there's a drop down there which allows you to select the location. So you could apply it to, say, the house, and then when you're doing things associated with the garden, you could select garden from that location. So that's when you might want to organize by location. But I'm quite sure that the majority of you, when you're creating a quote, will do it by build phase. So we'll stick with build phase for today. The next option we have is the data filter. So this shows which resource types we're including in the quote. So by default, they're all in there as you'd expect. The one case where you might want to change that is if you're doing a labour only quote. So you could untick everything and just select labour. So if you want a labour only quote, that's how to do it. For now, we will leave all the resource types selected. So then we have the contents. So you can choose whether you want a cover page, whether you want an intro letter. If there's any assumptions and omissions in your estimate, you can choose whether to include those, and so on. So if you want to remove any of those sections, just untick the relevant box. And then we move on to inflation. So within our job settings, we have checked we're happy with the inflation rates. So this is the place where you can decide whether you are applying inflation to this particular estimate or not. So tick the box if you want inflation included. Of course, that's particularly useful when you're estimating for jobs in the future or on very long jobs. So if it's work that you're going to be doing 6-9 months down the line, then you're more likely to want to factor in the inflation. Of course, if you tick to include inflation, it will increase your price to the customer because it's obviously accurately reflecting how the prices of materials and skilled labour increase over time, which is a fact, isn't it? If you do choose to include inflation, then of course you can be really open with that to the customer, and you can explain. It demonstrates how accurate your quote is. You can explain that competing quotes may not have factored inflation in, and although they seem cheaper, they might not actually be cheaper in the long run. So we would recommend that you factor inflation in. But if for some reason you don't want it included, then of course just untick that box there. Next we have the VAT options. That can be a percentage amount, a fixed amount, or what we call input only for non-VAT registered businesses. So by default, it is set to add 20% VAT onto your quote, but this figure can be changed to a different percentage. So if you're doing work with a different classification of VAT, so if it's a 5% VAT classification, then you can change that, just type 5% into the percentage box. If VAT rates change suddenly, if they get lowered in the next few weeks or something to 15%, you could just type in the amount as appropriate there. So the third option was the input only option. So that's for companies who are not VAT registered. So if you select that option, you will still add VAT onto the resources you pay for, so materials and any VAT registered subcontract companies you're using, as set out in the price book. But with the input only option for VAT, EstimatorXpress won't apply VAT to the quote as a whole. And that's because if you're a non-VAT registered company, the VAT becomes an actual cost to your business, so you can't pass that on basically to your client. It's non-reclaimable. So if you're not VAT registered, select input only. In most other cases, you'd want to select 20% VAT. Okay, after that we've got some just font styles. So if you want to change the font, if you've got a particular font your company uses, or you want to change the size of any of the font throughout the document, you can use those settings there. But I'm sure you can work those out, very similar to typical Word settings. Okay, so if you want to focus in on one of the particular sections of the quote, on the Navigator on the left you'll see a breakdown of the different sections of the quote. So if we quickly click on header and footer, you can add a header or footer to the quote if you want to. So for example, you'll see at the top we've got the options for the header, and at the bottom we've got the options for the footer, and then you can decide what you want to place to the left, to the center, to the right. So you might want to include, for example, your company details, company name, phone number, email, for example. You've noticed that nothing has appeared on screen yet. That's because if you make any changes to your quote, you need to click the Apply Changes button at the bottom there. If you click Apply Changes, then you'll see those fields have appeared. So yeah, you can choose what fields you might like to put in the header and in the footer. I'm going to put, maybe I'll put the date created on the right hand side. Whatever makes sense to you is absolutely fine. Again, you probably have standard ways of doing this anyway that you might just want to replicate within EstimatorXpress. Okay, so I'm then going to click on Cover Page on the Navigator on the left. So for each section that we click on and look at, on the right hand side we have some settings which just deal with that particular section. So these are the cover page settings. So one of the main things you might want to insert on the cover page is your company logo. So to do that, right at the bottom of the cover page settings there's an include logo tick box. Tick that, and then you need to browse your computer for your image logo. So it needs to be set up as an image, so Jpeg, Bitmap, PNG file. If you can navigate to where you've got your logo saved, click on it, open it up, and then you've got some options as to where it appears. So horizontal alignment means is it left, center, right, and then vertical alignment, you can either put it at the top of the page or the bottom. Click Apply Changes for it to appear. Just scroll down again to see it. You'll see it's been inserted right at the bottom of the page, so you can use this vertical padding option to make it appear a little bit higher. I'm going to set the vertical padding to 30 mil, 3 centimeters. Click Apply Changes, Let's moved it up a bit. You can also change the size of it using that size option there. Just increase the figure to increase the size. I made it 10 mil. Okay, so you can just play around with those settings so that it's positioned as you want it to be. The details on the cover page come from these settings here within this box. So it's taking the client name and the site address from the details that you've typed in within the job. I think it will probably say something different on yours. Hopefully it'll say single story rear extension or lean-to extension or something. I think because I've overridden the settings on my quote, it's put double story in for some reason. But if you want to make any changes, you just see I clicked into the box, typed in, click apply changes, and those changes will be made. So that's just a text box with some special fields. And if you don't want those special fields, you can again just type over them. That's absolutely fine. So that's the cover page. The next section we've got is the letter. So if you click on letter, you'll see we have got a template letter. I'll just change mine for a moment. I've got some special settings set up on my computer. So out of the box, yours will have out of the box, yours will probably have the extension letter selected. This has a template letter in. Of course, you might want to edit that. You might have a particular tone that you like to use with your company, a particular way of wording things. So again, you can just type directly into the box to make any changes. You've probably got a letter saved as a Word document or something that you regularly use anyway. If that's the case and you want to copy it into the software, what you should do is open up the Word document, highlight the text, press the Ctrl and C buttons. So I would just do the body of the letter. So from where it says thank you to however you sign it off, your salutation there. Copy and paste the body of the letter. So you might want to press Ctrl and C within Word to copy the text. And then within this text box, you can highlight where you want to replace the text. And then press Ctrl and V on your keyboard. So that's a Windows shortcut for pasting, Ctrl and V. So copy and paste the text into the text box. Then you can click Save, and you can either overwrite the defaults in the software, or you can do what I've done, which is to create a new paragraph or letter template. So click New Paragraph Name, then type in your company name in there. So you can say I've done Orbit extension template or whatever. So you can then select it in the future, and you can have different variations. So you can have a different one set up for a renovation job, for a loft extension, loft conversion, or whatever. If you want to have multiple variations set up, you can. There are also, you can see keywords within the letter. You do have the option to insert keywords using this list here. So if there's a particular field that you want to add in, then you can use the fields to do that. Just click where you want it within the letter text, then just simply select the keyword, and that will be inserted. And then that, of course, means that every time you create a new quote, the software will automatically pull in that field from that particular estimate. So it's a bit more intelligent if you do that. There's also an option here to include a letterhead if you've got a company letterhead. The best way to do that is to have a single page size image. If you have any trouble doing that, get in touch with the tech support team and they will talk you through it. Okay, we've also got a section for assumptions and omissions. I won't go into detail on these. Excuse me, slightly tickly throat. If you've entered in any assumptions and omissions, they will appear in this section by default. Same for provisional sums. We haven't added any into this estimate yet, so they're blank at the moment. Then we have the cost summary. Not really many options here, but just to show you that section comes next. And then importantly, we have the quote breakdown. So if you click on quote breakdown and then click on the build phases tab on the settings, you will see that you have a number of different options for the way the breakdown of the quote is set out. So firstly, you'll notice that we've got an image for each build phase. If I go down to one of the construction phases, we have these build phase images. We suggest that you leave them in if you've got a domestic client. Of course, it helps them understand what each section of the quote relates to, but it also helps them create a bit of an emotional bond. Probably sounds a bit highbrow, but it's the same reason a car salesman will get you sitting in a car as soon as you get in the showroom. It creates that excitement about what's going to happen. So those pictures can help them visualize the components of the build and help them imagine it happening. So it's a subtle part of the sales process. So possibly a good idea to leave them in for domestic clients. If it's a business client, then of course they're going to be 100% focused on the data, so you might want to switch them off. It might not be appropriate. So if you want to switch them off, there is a setting here to show image or not show the image if you untick it. So there we can see you might need to click back to build phases again once you've done that. So you can choose whether to show the image or not. You can choose whether to show a description for the build phase. So each build phase has a short explanation. So there we can see for foundations, it explains that in this phase you will excavate for foundations using plant and cast foundations. And there's a bit of a caveat there about whether you need to make a change to foundation depth and so on. So you can decide whether or not you want those descriptions in there. There's an option as to whether you want to show the total build phase cost. So for each build phase, the build phase cost is shown there. You can decide whether you want to show it in this part of the quote or not. Switch it off if you don't want it. Of course, each time you make a change, don't forget to click Apply Changes. Okay. There's an option here I skipped over, whether you want to start each build phase on a new page. So that can keep it looking quite neat so that your build phases aren't being split over multiple pages where possible. Then we also have the build phase tick boxes. So scrolling down these settings here. So of course all of the build phases included in the estimate are shown by default. But if you don't want to show a particular build phase for any reason, you can untick it. It doesn't mean the costs are not included in the quote. They're still included in the quote, but they come under what we call the additional charges section. So if you don't want to itemize a particular build phase, you can untick it from there, but the costs will still be included in the quote. And then scrolling down, we have a few resource settings. So we have the option to show key resources, or all resources, or hide all resources. So for example, you might want to just show key resources. You can itemize every single resource within there. And there might be times when you want to hide them, but we would suggest going with key or all resources. Key resources are, of course, the main ones. If I just apply that change so you can see. Scroll down to a different section. So within our masonry shell, we've of course got bricks, blocks, insulation. It does have the sand and cement, brick ties and so on. Just to see what all resources shows. basically all resources should show more detail, but I can't see exactly what difference it's making within this particular build phase. I need to compare them side by side so I can see. But yeah, you just specify the amount of detail you want to show in terms of the resources. A really important option here is the quantities. So at the moment you can see the quantities are being shown. If you wish to hide the quantities, you can untick that box. And there you'll see that column's removed. Now, we know that a lot of builders are fearful of showing their quantities, but one way to look at it is that it will strengthen the quality of your quote. It allows you to explain your costs to the client. It shows the level of detail you're working to. It may be that you're worried about your client showing the quote to another builder. If that's the case, don't be. There's a bit of a workaround. You could produce two versions of the quote, one with the quantities, one without. When you're showing the client the quote, you could talk through quantities, but then you could leave a second copy with them that doesn't have the quantities on, and then you can be confident that they're not going to use it to get a quote from another builder, if that is a concern of yours. Okay, I'm conscious that we're over time now, so I will wrap things up quickly. Friendly names are shorter versions of the product names. It removes the brand names and so on, so it makes it a bit more a bit easier for the layman to read, basically. I think the only other thing here we've got is subtotals, so you can decide whether you want to show the subtotals for materials within each build phase. I'll show you what that looks like. So as well as the subtotal for the entire masonry shell, you can also see show a breakdown for the materials for that particular build phase, and then if you wanted, you could show the breakdown for the labour as well. So those are all options within the build phases options. You could show your labour subtotals as well. So whatever you're happiest showing, you have full control over that. So if I scroll back up a bit, now we can see the breakdown of the labour for that particular build phase. Okay, so don't forget, any changes you make, click the Apply Changes button to see the changes in your quote. So that's the breakdown section. We then have acceptance forms after the breakdown of the build phases. So there's 2 copies of that. You can edit this document if you want to using the text boxes on the right hand side. Then finally we've got what we call terms and conditions. Terms and conditions is actually just a serving suggestion. You'll see you can type in whatever heading you want to there, and you can copy in some text. So if there's an extra document you want to add to the end, you can copy it in there. If you've got your own terms and conditions set up, you can copy it into the box. So in the same way as I described for your quote letter, you can copy it out of a Word document and then use the Ctrl and V keys to copy it into that text box. Precaution is, if you don't copy your own terms and conditions in there and you print the document as it is, you will get that page appearing with it saying please copy and paste your terms and conditions. If you don't want to show that section, we can go back to the main settings of the quote and we can untick where it says show terms, and then this section of the quote will be removed altogether, so you won't get that dodgy page saying copy in your terms. So either make sure you set up your terms or switch off that section, basically. Okay, so once you're happy with your quote, of course, you can export it as a Word document, save it to Word, sorry. You can save it as a PDF, and of course you can print it as well. And then it's over to you to get it into the customer's hands. There is a really detailed video on the customer quote on the help website. So if I just show you where it is. So remember, if you want some video help, go to the help tab, click the help videos button. that takes you to the how-to videos on the help.hpixel website. If you click on, oh, actually you can see it here, within the EstimatorXpress 2019 videos, which still absolutely applies to the latest version, you can click opening and editing the customer quote, and that goes through all of the quote settings step by step. So I know there's a lot to the quote, so there's a lot to think about there, but if you need to go over it again, I'd recommend that video to help you do that. Okay, so we're going to really quickly look at, I'm going to go back to the build program. So the first question is, I'm about to extend a build phase duration and I want the subsequent phases to be shifted back accordingly. What do I need to click? Is it the reset refresh button, cascade changes, tick box, display only specific build phases, tick box, or remove unused build phases button? Which button do you click if you want to change the duration of a build phase and you want the subsequent build phases to be shunted along? Okay, so those of you who have answered, you've answered correctly. That's right. Cascade changes tick box, which was being a bit flighty today. I will look into that, and hopefully if there's something needs sorting, the development team will be able to do it quickly and you'll get an update. But do get in touch with us if you have trouble again with it after today. Okay, so that's right. You've all answered correctly to that one. So next one. So this is moving on to reports. So how do I remove a column from a report? Do I click the delete button on the ribbon? Do I drag the column off the report to the top of the screen, or do I click the restore report button? How do I remove a column? Okie dokes. So in terms of removing a particular field, a particular column from the report, you can just click on the column heading and drag it off to the top. So the middle option is correct, and you all got that one right too. So brilliant. Okay, 2 questions left. So the next one, we're moving on to the quote because we've covered a lot today, haven't we? So how can I edit the text in the quote letter? Can I copy and paste the text into the box using Ctrl-C and Ctrl-V? Can I type directly into the box? Can I add keywords from the software using the drop-down option, or all of the above? Okay, you're on it today. That's right, all of the above apply. So whichever suits your purposes, you can Control and C, Control and V to text something in from another document. You can type in directly. You can add keywords if it's useful to you. So yeah, all of those ways you can edit. The same applies to the other sections of the quote as well. Anywhere where there's a text box, you can do those things. Okay, last question then. All about inflation on the quote. So how is inflation applied? It's always applied at a fixed rate of 5%. It's never applied, or it can be applied at the rate set in the job settings. Okay, so the correct answer to this one is the third option. So there's a tick box option to apply inflation or not within the quote settings, so within the main settings on the quote. And if you choose to apply inflation, it will be applied at the rate that you have set within your job settings, and it will kick in after the period of time that you've set out in your job settings as well. So if you set it to apply after 12 weeks, then after nearly 3 months, that's when the inflation will start being applied incrementally. So you're fully in control of that, so you can apply it as you wish. Okay, so that is the last question. So that concludes our Take Off and Estimate Software Skills course. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sticking with the course for the duration. I hope you found it useful. If you need any help or support going forward, then please do get in touch. You can call our tech support team, or you can email them at support@hpexcel.co.uk. Do get in touch if we can be of any assistance, or just to let us know how you're getting on. We really like to keep in touch as much as we can. We will send a course certificate to you. We'll also send over a survey. It's a really quick survey which will give us some insight into whether the course is delivering in terms of meeting your needs. So if you've got a minute or two to complete that, that would be much appreciated. We'll also send over the recordings of each of the modules so that you can go back over those if that's useful to you. So thank you very much, everybody. Good luck with your future estimating, and we'll speak again soon, no doubt. Thank you.